This is HRT-125, Plants to Society. We are discussing Unit 10, Materials, Cloth, Paper, and Wood. When we think back about plants and their use of clothing, the use as structures, we're now starting to think about being organic. We're starting to think about using the plants in their natural conditions. Uh, don't modify them. And as you open up the newspaper, as you open up the internet, you'll see more and more advertisements for natural types of plants, natural types of woods. This has been going on for years and years. When we think back of the years ago, how we utilized plants, because we use them for more than food and drink. They can clothe us. They can keep us warm. They can shelter us by building houses. We can save our history by writing down on paper. We can use rope to help us haul things, to protect things. So plants do furnish society a lot more. And humans have learned throughout the years different techniques to take these plants and utilize them for other things other than food. We've learned that some fibers are built on top of the plant. Some fibers are taken from inside the plant. And people throughout the ages have learned different techniques to do this. Um, the Chinese years ago discovered that you could stand on plants using your weight. You could take stones and push the soft fibers off. You could take sticks and beat them. Uh, each a different plant, each a different way to get what we want for them. Early on, uh, plants were used for food. Plants were also used for clothing. One of our earliest inventions was the sewing needle. When you think about this, uh, how did humans at the time learn to take the skins from animals and wear them as clothing? How did they learn to keep the pieces of skin together? Well, it was because of a plant. Uh, they discovered that they could take the sharp tip of a plant and make a needle out of it and bring these two hides together and have different clothing. They learned years before the sewing needle that they could make string by taking the different fibers of the plants and folding them together or twisting them together, and we can make string or rope. Combine the two together, we can make clothing. And the clothing together could allow us to explore different parts of the world. We now could go further north. We could go hunting further north. Um, there's plants like the agave plant. It's the plant that you make tequila out of. You can take that and take the sharp tips, make a needle. You can take the fibers from the leaves and take off the soft part and make a thread. Uh, People learned that you can take these fibers, twist them together. If you twisted them together, you can get rope. You could get a longer piece of fiber by twisting together, relying upon their surface tension to hold them together. The spinning wheel was invented. This allowed us then to take those fibers, twist them together, and make long rolls of yarn, uh, long rolls of string, so that this could be utilized to make other types of clothing. People learned early on that you could take these fibers and twist them together, plait them together, and you can make a basket. That basket then allowed you to harvest corn, beans, put them in the basket and carrying them someplace. You could take this on your fishing expeditions, and fish that you catch you could put in here. Not only could you store things in here, you could also use it to keep things off the floor. Um, it's harder to find these because since they were made of plant, they do degrade over the years. But again, we find them certainly 1,000 years before Christ. People learned that not only do animals have fibers, that plants have fibers too. Some are hard, some are soft. As man started to gather together, they learned they had to share things. And as they were sharing things, uh, baskets were easy to share. Different techniques were developed by each group, whether it was plaiting or twining or coiling, uh, the three different areas. Each type of community did it different. For example, you used the grasses a lot more in the northern climates. You used larger leaves in the southern climates. Plants were used for other things besides clothing, besides for making baskets. Uh, we could use them for musical instruments. Um, the bamboo or the arandodonyx could be used to make flutes. Um, since they were hollow, they could punch different holes in there, and by blowing through it, you make different musical tunes. This lifted up people's spirits at the times. One of the first plants that has been used for our clothing has been cotton. We have found archaeologically fibers in Mexico from at least 7,000 years ago. It seems that two different types of cotton have been found, one that originated in India and the other in South America. If you look here, you can see these white things in the pictures, and these are masses about half the size of your fist, and they're filled with the fibers as well as hundreds of seeds. And throughout the years, uh, cotton has been utilized, but cotton also required a large number of people just to get the seeds out of the fibers. Different techniques were used. They learned that they could scrape it with different like combs. They learned that they could take it and beat it on the ground. But unfortunately, most of it involved human labor of actually picking the seeds out one by one. At first, they thought cotton was very similar to wool, and if it was like wool, it should be actually from animals. The animals happened to pass on by these trees and was scraped off. Uh, Early on, the biggest production of cotton was actually in India. Cotton may be one of the plants that changed the world. There was a huge demand for cotton. Uh, Cotton made some of the best clothing there was. Cotton was good because you could dye it different colors. Cotton was good because it lasted. Cotton was good because it was warm. And because of all this, England wanted the cotton. And England realized that if they could find a way to mechanize the production of this cotton, in other words, how do you take the fibers and make them into clothing, they could become rich. This may have been the start of the Industrial Revolution. That in England, they used the streams for water power. They used water also for steam power to drive huge machines that would make all sorts of cotton fabrics. India at the time was growing most of the cotton. Um, India, however, didn't want to give away this cotton. So what happened was a huge trading combine was developed where silver from the Americas was utilized to trade for this cotton. This disturbed England, and England wanted to have a better use of the cotton, so they developed the opium trade. This then forced India to trade for their cotton. This led to several wars at the time to force India to give their cotton to England. Treaties were then developed forcing the Indian subcontinent to not take the cotton and develop it into a textile, not into a fabric. This cotton had to be transported to England, where in their huge mills the new fabric was made. This then was shipped to the rest of the world, allowing England to become a huge naval power at the time. This is a high power magnification of the cotton, and you see that the fibers are all twisted among themselves. The fibers are actually hollow, so that as you twist them together, there's a large amount of surface area which adheres to the surface area of the next fiber. So as you twist them, the rope or the yarn can be longer and longer and become stronger and stronger. Because they're hollow, they would accept colors. So now to satisfy the world, different dyes could be developed to allow the cotton to be in more vibrant colors. Cotton was the king at the time. It was the crop of the United States. It was the crop of the United States. Before this, it had been tobacco. But cotton was much easier to grow. Cotton, vast tracts of land could be taken over by cotton. The southern parts of the United States supplied 75% of the world's cotton. And at that time, it was hand-picked, and it was hand separating out the seeds. The cotton gin was developed. The cotton gin made the crop even more important. The cotton gin involved a device that was turned, and it had different saw teeth on it, which allowed the seeds to be picked out. Now all of a sudden, instead of taking 10 men in one day to do a bale of cotton, one person could do several bales a day. And so consequently, the use of cotton throughout the world grew and grew. This helped England, and England's massive industrial revolution continued with this use of cotton now that could be shipped from the United States. When the war between the states continued, England, of course, wanted to be on the side of the South because that's where they got their cotton and allowed them to be dominant throughout the world. Cotton has been used in many different forms since then. A new technique was involved to treat the cotton with sodium hydroxide. And as the sodium hydroxide, which was sort of a very basic chemical, this allowed the hollow cotton fibers to open up more. And as they opened up more, they would accept dye, and so you could have better colors. And it was easier to dye, and also the fibers became stronger. Most of the world now, we have cotton growing with the use of pesticides. One of the huge problems with cotton was an insect called the boll weevil. And the boll weevil could decimate a crop very quickly. Chemicals were utilized to control this, and however, a effective chemical was not utilized until late in the 1950s. What has happened, of course, is that in our search for sustainability, we have now tried to grow cotton without the use of all these chemicals. We've learned that we can attempt the boll weevil with pheromones. So if we can move the boll weevil into just a small area, it's much easier to kill them. And consequently, we have a much better use of cotton. We have changed cotton. Just like in the last unit, you saw how we changed corn. Cotton has been changed. Because of the boll weevil, we've had to use a large amount of pesticides. However, again, by changing the DNA structure, we can change the cotton, so all of a sudden it becomes cheaper to grow. Now we're not having to use thousands of dollars worth of pesticides. We can use 80% less pesticide than ordinary cotton. The U.S. cotton crop in 2003 was 73% genetically modified.